a an April Fool's trick like this, because the military doesn't do this. And sure enough, they did. They had a remote viewing unit, and all of a sudden there I was in it. And so that was April Fool's Day, '84, and I stayed there the rest of my time in the military.
That's amazing. And that was 8.5 years, correct?
About 8.5 years, yeah. Mm-hmm. The Army rotates you every 3 years, no matter what. And I had become the trainer of the military unit. And so, by special dispensation and all, I got to stay there the rest of my military career.
Why did it become declassified?
Well, in D.C., there are always two answers to every question you can possibly ask, and those are money and politics. The Cold War was over. People were getting let off. The slots for spies and everything else were just dwindling away and quitting their funding. And so here was this unit that was supposedly a psychic unit, and everybody's, that's a 4-letter word in D.C. And so the unit got disbanded. Well, in late 95, there was one of our military members who went out and started talking to the press and showing up on TV saying that all this, had happened and the military was using psychics and all this other. And so the CIA had to respond in some way. And so the way they responded was they put out a letter saying, yes, there was a unit like this. They were totally ineffective, and so we got rid of them. Well, the fact is that they had done studies, and we had a higher accuracy rate than spy-in-the-sky satellites.
That's totally mind-blowing.
It really is. We had a 72.8% accuracy rate. And, it's not only mind-blowing that that's the highest, but also that spy-in-the-sky satellites aren't that accurate.
Why?
Well, because of the information has to be interpreted, and the satellite interpreters aren't that accurate.
Sounds very expensive also. It's like overkill in terms of technology expense. But when what you're doing and the teams that were trained in controlled remote viewing are doing doesn't waste as much money.
Well, that's true. In every unit, you have the personnel and the equipment. And in our unit, the personnel was the equipment. So they got us for half price. But, the thing is that our information went into a big pool with all the other intel sources. And things like spy-in-the-sky satellites, they're very expensive. But, you compare that to the loss of freedom by being overrun by another country, it's sort of, I think, worth the buck. So, intelligence is very expensive, but without it, we wouldn't have a country. So,
why did you name your book The Seventh Sense?
The Seventh Sense came from research that we had done and that I had done personally, realizing that you have the 5 senses, which are physical, and then there is another sense where you get the ambiance in the room around you. And the ambiance is a dependable sense. It's repeatable. You put 100 people one at a time into a cathedral, they're going to get that hushed feeling. You put them on the edge of a cliff, they're going to get, whoa, And it's a repeatable sense, but there's no body part to stick it to. And what we found through the study of psychics, natural psychics and working psychics, is that a large portion of the work they do is not reading your future or your past or anything. It's reading you. It's reading tells, just like poker players across a table. And it's the sense of ambiance that they are extremely good at. There's a difference between that and the seventh sense. The seventh sense being able to sit down at a table and sense what's going on halfway around the world. And we have found that we can develop the ambiance sense to a sense that is even greater than the sense of sight. And, I have always said that if I could stop teaching remote viewing and start teaching the ambiance sense that we learned in the military and learned to hone in the military, to the point where, if I could teach that to policemen and to soldiers out in the field, we would stop having dead cops and dead soldiers. And, it's a trainable thing. It's not psychic in any way, and yet it's extremely valuable. And anyway, the ambiance sense we teach in our course, and we teach you to distinguish between reading the room around you and reading a room that's halfway around the world, because there is a definite distinction between the ambiance sense and the psychic sense, which is actually the seventh.
Really?
Yeah. And once you learn to distinguish those differences, all of a sudden you learn to tell, like you see TV psychics, you learn to tell when they're actually being psychic, which is actually a very minor part of the time. They will get an impression, a psychic impression. Then they will logically start building on it and, read the audience to know what to say and all that. Now, I'm not saying they're doing this on purpose, because most people, and as far as I've seen, most psychics don't know the difference between ambiance and psychic sense, between the sixth and the seventh sense.
You also talk about in your book that the brain is really trained, or our minds are trained to name things and figure out stuff, and not necessarily trained in the faculty of describing.
Right, because all Indo-European languages are built on nouns, and they are built around nouns, and so the fact is that a natural psychic will tend to try to get the answer. We have to try to get the description and the information that we can give to the Department of Defense or to some company or something, so that they can make decisions with information. We don't make the decisions for them. And this fact that our language is built around nouns means that as soon as you get a noun, you tend to lock yourself into an idea. So you start describing something, and you have, I give you a sight, and you say, there's something red, something round, something rubbery. Oh, I'll bet it's a ball. You lock yourself into the idea of a ball game or a beach ball or something like that, whatever comes to mind. And from that point on, you're not giving pure information. You're giving polluted information. You're doing what's called building castles. You start building a castle wall, and you only start adding this stuff that fits the wall. If something doesn't fit, you throw it away. And so a person, once having accepted a noun, will then start taking only those descriptors which fit that preconceived idea, and it acts as pollution, and it will actually draw a viewer off. So when a person comes up with a noun, we make them set them aside and go back to describing, because you may not have a ball. You may have a sight where there's something round, something red, and something else rubbery. And so we demand descriptors, not nouns. Interestingly enough, I have some Apache Indians who are students as well. The Apache language is built around verbs. And we have to make them set their verbs aside, because they will jump to conclusions. They'll say, it's walking. Oh, therefore it must be a person. And, and they do the same because the Apache language is built around verbs and not nouns.